Hi everyone, welcome to the CC Armor channel. Today we're going to do something for the science here again. So a few months ago I posted a video on a Shadow 2 compact and whether or not it was drop safe. It is one of the most viewed videos on my channel. Lots of comments, I got lots of traction with the audience there. One common theme across the comments was the fact that I didn't do a proper test, right? That the test that I did, hitting the hammer, wasn't the proper way to test if a gun is drop safe or not. That the real test is the gun falling barrel down, so hitting the barrel. And the theory is that the inertia of that impact would be enough to propel the firing pin forward enough to hit the primer and ignite the ammunition there. Well, just to clarify before we move forward here, a couple things. One, what triggered that video was actually a specific scenario in which somebody actually dropped a Shadow 2 full size, not a compact, but they dropped a Shadow 2 in a practical shooting competition, and it went down with the hammer hitting the ground first. And the hammer was down because the competitor was shooting the production division, which requires you to, after you get the gun loaded and hot, to start the course of fire, your hammer would be cocked. It requires you to actually decock the hammer, put the hammer down and start the course of fire in double action. So that hammer then, the gun then fell down, hit the hammer first somehow, and that ignited the ammo. A shot was fired. Someone got killed in that scenario, unfortunately. But this was the scenario that triggered that video, and I wanted to test whether or not this would happen. I could reproduce that, and in which circumstances I could reproduce that. The conclusion of that video is that I could only reproduce that using an extended firing pin and a reduced power firing pin spring. With the stock firing pin and stock spring, I couldn't do that. Even hitting the hammer as hard as I possibly could without causing any damage to the gun, the firing pin never actually touched the primer. So today, I'm gonna do the test that everybody was looking for. Dropping a Shadow 2 full size, barrel first, barrel down, and see if it ignites the case. So I'm using a empty case, so nobody's gonna get hurt doing this. And by the way, if you don't do this at home, if you decide to do this on your own, you do at your own risk. I'm not recommending anybody to do this. I'm doing this just for my own experiment and my own conclusions here, not motivating anyone to do the same. Basically, I'm doing so you don't have to do. So this is an empty case loaded with a Federal small pistol primer, one of these Federal 100s. So if you are in the reloading, you probably know that this is one of the softest, if not the softest primer you can find here in the States. So if this doesn't go off, I don't think any other ammo would go off. I'm gonna load this in the gun and go outside. The only caveat, the only thing different is I don't really feel like dropping my Shadow 2 in a concrete slab, so I'm gonna put a plywood or something between the concrete slab and the Shadow 2. So we'll hit the plywood first. You might argue that that's gonna absorb a lot of the energy and it isn't the same as hitting the ground. Well, let me tell you this. This is also not just a regular Shadow 2. I had brass grips here, so this is not a regular Shadow 2 without the magazine. Optics ready Shadow 2 would weigh about 43 ounces. This thing weighs more than 50 ounces. So I guess that kind of counterbalance a little bit the fact that it's not going to hit directly the concrete or hit plywood instead. But we'll see how that goes. And I'm also taking advantage of this to talk about this optics. And thank Siley for sending me this one. They sent me and asked me to do a torture test with it. I did a bunch of shooting tests, not really a torture test yet. Yeah, it does work great. It has a 2.5 MOA dot, held the zero pretty well in the tests that I did. So I'm confident that dropping the gun with this, as sturdy and robust as you can see here, this thing is, it's not going to cause any damage to it. So we'll see how that goes. So that's the piece of plywood that I could find, and I'm dropping the gun 3 times from about my height, about my chest height. I'm a 5'9" guy, so this should be high enough to, if there is any truth to the theory that this would ignite barrel down, it would have done it. Now you can see in slow motion all 3 hits. That's the first one. It did hit pretty good with the barrel down. Now the second drop. That's the one that flipped a little bit. Cost me a chip in the front because it went all the way off to hit the concrete there. And third hit, none of them went off. All right, so we're back here at the shop, and hopefully it was a good slow motion. You could see through the slow motion the gun hitting the plywood pretty hard, barrel down. Nothing went off, like it did not go off at all. No damage to the gun that I can tell. There's a little chip here, at the front and that wasn't the gun hit it. One of the times it actually flips and hit again outside of the plywood. So it hit the ground hit the concrete at that point, but just a little scratch, nothing else on it. So it looks great. Let's see how the case inside looks like. So got the case. There is nothing on it. So that firing pin never touched that primer. So with that, my conclusion is that no, a Shadow 2 will not fire if it's dropped, as long as you're using, the OEM firing pin and the OEM firing pin spring, which is what this gun is loaded with. I don't think you're going to be able to reproduce a Shadow 2 firing being dropped. I dropped from a pretty good height. Of course, you go to a 3-story building for the 3rd floor. Maybe it's a different story, but just dropping from a regular height of someone carrying a gun, I don't think this is going to happen. I suspected this would be the case. These tests became kind of famous on 1911, the 1911 platform, and the 1911 firing pin and spring is quite different than a CZ firing pin and spring. You can tell that's what the CZ firing pin and spring looks like. So this spring is much thicker, much shorter than what you would have in 1911. So I didn't think that dropping the gun would have enough inertia to just beat this spring and get the firing pin propelled forward enough. And this is what happened. Like it is a drop safe gun in my view. Thank you so much, and I hope this has been helpful to you.